Pastor Mark Burns used to be candidate Mark Burns, but he recently lost his election. He was running for U.S. Congress in South Carolina. He was running for U.S. Congress in South Carolina. He was a hardcore Trumpist, like deep Trump supporter. You know, election conspiracies and all of that, the whole 9 yards. But like I said, he lost, so he's no longer candidate Mark Burns. He's Pastor Mark Burns now. In my eyes, it's still worth our time to look at what he has to say, though, because he is part of the political movement. He's contributing to it in his own ways. And again, he's a pastor, and when pastors get involved in politics like this, I feel the need to cover it. So, with that being said, let me just refresh your memory on this thing that he said last week, I think, because it's going to be relevant in a second. Listen to this clip. Early June 2022 is when he said this. Check this clip out.
The LGBT, transgender, grooming our children's minds is a national security threat because it is ultimately designed to destabilize the republic we call the United States of America. That's why when I'm elected, I don't want to just vote. I want to start holding people accountable for treason.
Okay, so what he says here is LGBT allies. He's saying people like us should be held accountable for treason to the U.S. government. He says being in support of LGBT rights is a national security threat, and we should be held accountable for treason, right? There are two parts to this clip, so that's the first section. And here's where he explains what he believes should happen to people who are charged with treason. Listen to this part.
We need to hold people for treason, start having some public hearings, and start executing people who are found guilty for their treasonous acts against the Constitution of the United States of America, just like they did back in 1776.
Okay, now I covered this last week, like I said. And at the time, when I was covering this, Newsweek, MSNBC, a whole bunch of other news networks were talking about it too. Because this guy just said he wants the death penalty for the LGBT community, for anybody from the LGBT community, right? That's pretty clear. There's no getting around that. That's what he said. He said, if you're an LGBT ally, you should be charged with treason. And then, a sentence or two later, he says, if you're charged with treason, you should receive the death penalty. Doesn't take a huge logical leap to get to where he is, right? The reason that this is relevant, and the reason I'm playing this again, is because after this was covered by MSNBC and Newsweek and all these others, he decided to backtrack. He decided he wasn't happy with the attention that got him. So he goes on this far-right conspiracy theory show called Diamond and Silk. These two women on the left are named Diamond and Silk. This is on Lindell TV. I think they have their own TV show on Mike Lindell's TV network. Anyway, we'll get into them in a minute. They have their own can of worms that we're going to have to get into. But he goes on Diamond and Silk to defend himself. So let's listen to how he decided to defend himself from his crystal clear comments. Listen to this.
If people would just go do their due diligence and just watch the show in its entirety, then you would clearly hear me not say that we should be killing the LGBT or transgender, community. We've been getting blasted.
Okay, so he says it's a context problem. If we just went back and listened to it in its entirety, huh? Okay, well, I skipped a little bit. I did. I skipped some. So let's start at the end of his LGBT sentence and go all the way to the beginning of his what you do to traitors sentence. Listen to the gap in between, okay? Check this out.
I don't want to just vote. I want to start holding people accountable for treason.
This is about the LGBT community. He says, people from the LGBT community are a national security threat. When I get to Congress, I'm not just going to vote on bills. I'm going to hold these people accountable for treason. Right? That's where he led us in this sentence just now. And then he says,
I am going to push to reenact HUAC. HUAC is the House of Un-American Activities Committee. It was a real committee that was formulated back in the 50s.
HUAC was a House committee that perpetrated McCarthyism. It was like an anti-communist committee. And they were like jailing people, firing people from their jobs, and all kinds of crazy stuff if they were communist or socialist or whatever. It was part of the whole Red Scare or whatever else. So he wants to formulate following his train of thought, he wants to formulate a committee, House of Un-American Activities Committee, dedicated to finding members of the LGBT community and holding them accountable for treason. That's what he said. That's what this is, right? No way to misinterpret this.
And it's a committee that we should reenact that starts holding these people accountable for treason. Lindsey Graham.
Now he says, we're going to want to hold these people accountable for treason. End of sentence. Beginning of a new sentence. Now he's talking about Lindsey Graham, okay? I just want to make sure we have full context for this whole thing, so he can't weasel his way out.
Lindsey Graham should be held accountable for treason for supporting Joe Biden's gun-grabbing Second Amendment law that he's trying to push forward. Lindsey Graham, my opponent's mentor, just stated that I am supporting all initiatives that Joe Biden has put forward with gun control, and he is pushing for others, Democrats, to push it to a vote.
So what I'm picking up is not only does he want to charge members of the LGBT community with treason, but he also wants to charge Lindsey Graham with treason for, what, I guess disagreeing with something? I mean, this is like a thought crime at this point.
Mitch McConnell just stated to urge other Republican senators to support Lindsey Graham to come after our guns, to confiscate our guns. That should be held for treason, not just be voting people. No, we need to hold people for treason, start having some public hearings, and start executing people who are found guilty for their treasonous acts against the Constitution of the United States of America, just like they did back in 1776.
Okay, so what he's saying here, I get the impression the reason that he was talking about people who support the LGBT community, the reason he said that is because everything else in this whole sentence was about thought crimes. Everything in this whole thing was thought crime related. Lindsey Graham doesn't agree with him on the Second Amendment or gun legislation. The LGBT community doesn't agree with him on certain things, so they should be held for treason. And ultimately, HUAC, the House of Un-American Activities Committee, that was a thought crime committee, ultimately. That's what it was all about, thought crimes. If they thought that you believed in communism, you could be charged. You could be sentenced. You could be put in jail for that. Or you could, at the very least, be fired from your job and ostracized from your community. So this guy very clearly picked two things, two subjects, LGBT rights and gun rights, and said if you disagree with him on those two things, you should be held for treason. And we all know what he said should happen for people who are charged with treason. There's no way to misinterpret that. I don't know how else he expects us to read that. I'm just listening to the words he says and understanding them. That's it. What did you mean, if not that, Mark?
Then you would clearly hear me not say that we should be killing the LGBT or transgender, community.
That is exactly what he said. Exactly what he said. There are other clips of him saying it about the trans community. I haven't played those in this one or in the last video I did on him, but they are out there and I do have them.
We've been getting blasted from the gay community and trans community from all over the country because, Newsweek and MSNBC and all of those other liberal medias took pieces of two answers. There was two separate questions. There were two separate topics.
No, it wasn't two separate questions, two separate topics. You were telling us what you believe should happen to traitors. And you said members of the LGBT community are traitors. And so is Lindsey Graham for supporting gun legislation. That's what you said. That wasn't two different questions or two different answers. There was no cut in the middle. There's no fade to black and then jump to another answer in there. I had one full and complete segment from you, Mark. There's no way to weasel out of this.
I was talking about, yes, we do need to be holding people for treason in America. Those that are doing business with China, those that are doing business with Iran.
No, that's not what you were talking about. You didn't mention China or Iran in that clip. Did he forget what he even said? Like, we just watched it. We can pull this up. And for that matter, why is he even on a far-right conspiracy TV network with far-right conspiracy theorists trying to defend this? These are the types of people, Diamond and Silk, who are in complete support of the statement like that. If he really did want to charge the LGBT community with treason, these are the people that would stand behind him and their listeners. I honestly don't know why he decided to go here and correct the record, quote unquote. Bizarre.
Includes elected officials. That includes the media. That includes, any person that is undermining the sovereignty of our great nation. We call it the United States of America. They need to be held accountable for treason.
Anybody who undermines the sovereignty of this great nation? Interesting you say that because, some would say Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert, Andy Biggs, Mo Brooks, Donald Trump. Some would say that they kind of, what was the phrase he used? Undermined the sovereignty of the United States. So if you're going to start doing that, you're going to have to put them at the front of the line.
Just like Hillary Clinton, just like Hunter Biden's laptop. They keep doing these nefarious things and getting away with it. Fauci needs to be held accountable for treason, for knowing that the death, that what he's been pushing on Americans and the mass that he's been pushing on Americans, that's a false narrative that is funding Big Pharma.
There is nothing in this guy's head but propaganda, is there? Nothing. Completely empty, except propaganda. What does Hunter Biden... Did he say we should charge Hunter Biden's laptop with treason? Is that what he said? What did Hillary Clinton do that was treasonous to the United States? Who was the last person? Fauci? What did Fauci do that was treasonous to the United States? Like, I know you've got your conspiracy theories and all that stuff. Do you have anything solid? Do you have anything concrete that's not a thought crime? You can't just give people you don't like the death penalty. There has to be something behind it. The guy seems to be openly calling for authoritarianism and violating human rights. I don't know how else to read this. I'm so glad he lost his primary. Unfortunately, he's obviously still involved in political discourse in the United States. He is on Lindell TV. Like, this is a real full-blown TV network that he's on. These people are incredibly well known in some political circles. It's disturbing stuff, dude.
But yet millions of Americans are dying at the hands of their poor instructions. They need to be held accountable.
Their poor instructions? What is he talking about? Big Pharma, people dying because of their poor instructions. Really, there's nothing in this guy's head but propaganda, and he assumes that everybody else is on board with that propaganda, and that's why he makes absolutely no sense.
But we're not doing that. And so they took that answer of me talking about HUAC, the House of Un-American Activities Committee, and then they mixed it with another part of a question, which was about how we should not be allowing the transgender agenda into our public school.
No, it was nothing about that. We watched the clip in its entirety. It had nothing to do with what he's saying here, and I don't know why he's trying to defend himself on this show of all places. He would get more votes and higher ratings if he doubled down on his whole charge LGBT people with treason bit. Does he think this is making him more popular? It just blows my mind. Like, where's this dude's head? Diamond and Silk, though, I haven't talked about them before. I've known about them for a long time. Those are the two women on the left here, the left of the screen. They run this show on Lindell TV. So let me give you a little bit of background into who these people are. Let's see what type of audience Mark Burns was addressing when he made all of these arguments. This is Diamond and Silk's show on June 19th, 2022, okay? Listen to this.
Individual carbon footprint tracker. Stay tuned. We don't have it operational yet, but this is something that we're working on.
Yeah, these aren't global elitists. These are global thugs.
Yes.
Yeah, I call them their evildoers.
So they seem to be upset over the idea that people want to create carbon footprint trackers, right? Nobody said they were mandatory. They just said they were trying to work on carbon footprint trackers. There are companies out there that'll help you calculate your carbon footprint so that you can figure out how to counteract that. Donate to an organization or something that matches the amount of carbon that you're putting into the atmosphere and have them plant an equivalent number of trees or something like that. Why is it a bad thing to know how much carbon you're putting into the atmosphere? Nobody said a word about forcing it on you, but that's automatically where these two women went. By the way, that last clip, that was from Newsmax. If you're unfamiliar with Newsmax, it's like Fox News, except 10 times worse. Conspiracies left and right. Practically every word out of anybody's mouth on this TV network is propaganda. Anyway, listen to what Diamond and Silk had to say in response to the idea that a carbon tracker might exist.
I call them their evildoers. Because why is it that you feel like your lily made self want to track other people? Like we some type of rabid dog or some type of animal or something.
Or a robot.
Yeah. Like what? Why are you all sitting your lily made self up there trying to play God when you're not?
Come on.
Okay, no one's trying to play God. We're just trying to prevent the planet from turning into an apocalyptic wasteland. That's it. And we're not forcing it on anybody. We're just trying to make something that people could use to improve the world a little bit. When did it become left-wing to be concerned about pollution, for example? Why is pollution a left-wing, right-wing problem? This makes no sense.
God when you're not.
Come on.
When you're not. Yeah. And see, this is why we cannot allow them to chip away at our Second Amendment because we may need it still.
Hey.
Okay, wait. I wasn't sure which one was which. I wasn't sure which one was Diamond and which was Silk, but I think the one on the left just called the one on the right Silk, so... Yeah, I guess the one on the right is Silk, the one on the left is Diamond. Really interesting names. Anyway, you catch what they just said. This is why we can't allow them to chip away at our Second Amendment rights, because we may need them. Wow. Just wow. So I guess they buy guns and they keep guns around them at all times, just in case a carbon footprint tracker is created. Not used on you, but just created. These people really do just straight up live in a fantasy land where they seem to believe that, like, the government is out to get them 24/7. Or somebody's always out to get them. If it's not the government, then it's left-wingers, it's the Democrats, there's always somebody. There's always some enemy hunting them, coming out to get them, and they need guns to protect themselves from them. It's just an unhinged, confusing world to live in, honestly.
Because it looks like these people want to track us, globalize us.
You think they're not tracking you through your phone right now? Seriously, what kind of fantasy land do these people live in? Do you not realize that they've been tracking you through your phone since 2003 or something? Have you not heard of the PRISM program? Have you not heard of, like, the Edward Snowden leaks through, what's his name? God, I don't remember the dude's name. The Intercept guy, whoever it is. Yeah, Patriot Act. Yeah, that's the thing. Patriot Act. Patriot Act was enacted on October 26, 2001. Guess what, Diamond and Silk? They've been tracking you through your phone since that passed. And it's only been getting worse and worse and worse. Glenn Greenwald, that's the guy's name. I wanted to say Griswold, probably because I got the Supreme Court on the brain at the moment. Anyway, Glenn Greenwald, yeah, he was the reporter who released all the PRISM papers and stuff with Edward Snowden. It blows my mind that these people honestly don't even realize that they're being tracked 24/7. By the government, by Facebook, by everybody. Everybody is tracking you, and they have been for like decades now. And you're afraid of a carbon tracker? Like they would need a carbon tracker to track you. This is almost as bizarre to me as the claim that they need a microchip through a vaccine to track you. They've been tracking you through your phone for 20 years, okay? They don't need a microchip in a vaccine to do it. Just blows me away. Where are these people's heads? Are they not thinking critically? No. They're not. Honestly, that's the answer. They are not thinking critically, unfortunately.
And make us into something that we are not. And they're pushing this mess on to the people.
Making us into something that we're not? What does that mean? We're talking about tracking you. How would that make you into something that you're not? I feel like this goes just a little bit deeper than just tracking you and enters into, like, turn you into a lizard person through a vaccine conspiracy theory. I think that's kind of where it's headed a little bit.
And the people are telling you, we don't want this.
We don't want that.
We don't want this here.
Yeah.
You got these people sitting up here trying to make decisions for the rest of the world. Who are they?
Yes.
Who died and left y'all in charge?
Okay, a lot of these people were elected to be in charge of the districts that they're in charge of. They're not in charge of the world. Who they're talking about here is the World Economic Forum. There's this whole conspiracy revolving around the World Economic Forum called the Great Reset, and it's honestly completely baseless, and I talk about it in a video that comes out on my Telltale Unfiltered channel on July 1st. It's with Mel K. I debunk Mel K and a bunch of Great Reset stuff she said. Well, anyway, I go through the whole thing and break down exactly what the Great Reset is and all kinds of other stuff. In fact, I may insert a clip of that into this so that you can just see a sample of what I talk about on the Unfiltered channel. I may even link the full video in the description if you want to see the rest of it.
Let me just add this too, because this is like either 3 or 4 years ago. I didn't check with him to get his permission to quote him, so I won't say it, but one of the prophets that has been on the Elijah stream 3 or 4 years ago, we went out to lunch after the show because it was in the studio back then. And he said, you know, Steve, Facebook was created by the CIA. And I'm going, what? You know, back then we were all sound asleep. I mean, you may not have been, but I.
And this is supposed to be a prophecy from God? We were all sound asleep. Oh my God. Wake up, sheeple! This is so funny, dude. Facebook was created by the CIA. Okay, go on.
I was totally sound asleep. I just thought that sounded like foolishness. Now, and you're saying not only Facebook, but Twitter was also...
All of it.
I mean, it's hard to believe, but...
Wow. And he buys it now. This is so ridiculous. I can't even.
I do now.
Yeah. I mean, the sad thing is, like you brought up the food shortages. This is all in their playbook. Everyone should, I can send you a link too. Everyone should take a look at the Rockefeller Foundation 2010 a document on basically Operation Lockstep. In the CIA and their cohorts always have some kind of operation something. Well, this thing in 2010 came out shortly after another meeting at the Rockefeller Institute with Bill Gates and Bloomberg and a lot of the people involved.
Oh my God. These are all the centers of so many conspiracies. Bloomberg and Bill Gates and all that stuff. It's so sad, dude. So sad. So I'm looking at this BBC News article. The title is, What is the Great Reset and How Did It Get Hijacked by Conspiracy Theories? A vague set of proposals from an influential organization has been transformed by online conspiracy theorists into a powerful viral rallying cry. What is the truth behind the Great Reset? That's the title of the article. Where did it begin? Like many popular conspiracy theories, this one starts with a grain of fact, as I said a minute ago. In June 2020, the Prince of Wales and the head of the annual Davos Summit launched an initiative calling for the pandemic to be seen as a chance for what they call a great reset of the global economy. A flashy launch video interspersed images of a world in chaos. A dead killer whale, a hurricane, kangaroo caught in a fire with a speech by Prince Charles. You can watch it on YouTube, apparently, but that's the video, basically. We have an incredible opportunity to create an entirely new sustainable industry, the prince said. It's time to act now. The other founder of the initiative is Professor Klaus Schwab, head of the World Economic Forum, which organizes an annual summit in a Swiss ski resort for some of the world's wealthiest and most powerful people. He explained the idea behind the Great Reset in an article accompanying the launch. Here's a quote. The pandemic represents a rare but narrow window of opportunity to reflect, reimagine, and reset our world to create a healthier, more equitable, and more prosperous future. Why wouldn't these people want a more equitable future, a more equitable economy? There's a Great Reset podcast and even a 280-page book, but the plan is light on specific detail. Professor Schwab does speak about a wealth tax and ending fossil fuel subsidies, but the scope is huge, covering technology, climate change, the future of work, international security, and other themes, and it's difficult to see precisely what the Great Reset might mean in practice. The lack of clarity, combined with the plan being launched by an influential organization, provided fertile ground for the conspiracy theories to grow. Okay, this is the conspiracy section of it. The proposals, along with the WEF, World Economic Forum, itself, face legitimate criticism from a variety of sources. Conservative political figures and media outlets accuse the organization of pushing for environmental policies that would hurt the economy. There are questions about whether unelected individuals like Mr. Schwab should have the power to lobby so prominently for ideas that could potentially transform the global economy. The Davos meeting is certainly filled with powerful people who have a huge influence on world events. There are also concerns about the impact of technology on civil liberties and jobs. Number of Great Reset posts on Facebook. Oh, this is interesting. Between June 2020 and May 2021, it just exploded. Trudeau apparently put out a video about it. And after Trudeau put out a video, it exploded, apparently. The real energy online is not about legitimate political questions, discussions about fossil fuels and income inequality, but the shape of the wild and unsubstantiated claims. The term Great Reset has received more than 8 million interactions on Facebook and been shared almost 2 million times on Twitter since the initiative was launched, according to BBC Monitoring Research. Among the most popular posts are baseless statements that the Great Reset is a strategic part of a grand conspiracy by the global elite who somehow planned and managed the COVID-19 pandemic. In this narrative, lockdown restrictions were introduced not to curb the spread of the virus, but to deliberately bring about economic collapse and a socialist world government, albeit run for the benefit of powerful capitalists. Wow, that's absolutely nuts. Oh my God, J.P. Sears is in this BBC article. That dude used to be kind of funny, completely disconnected from reality now, that guy is. He is nutty. Franklin Graham's in it too. And who is Emerald Robinson? Never heard of Emerald Robinson before. God, this is crazy, dude. This Great Reset conspiracy is nuts. The nebulousness of this conspiracy theory means it's found followers among anti-vax activists, anti-lockdown campaigners, New Age healers, and those on the far right and far left. Melanie Smith, head of analysis at Graphica, who researches online movements and disinformation, says the rumors are typical of anti-establishment conspiracy theories. The most intricate of those typically prove popular with government skeptics from across the political spectrum, she says. In the hands of a diverse group of online activists, the Great Reset has been transformed from a call to encourage people to think about sustainable futures, or to a sinister plot against humanity. There we go. Oh, geez, I saw a sign outside of a Seventh-day Adventist church near my house that said something about the Great Reset a few months ago. Now it's all clicking into place, huh? You're remembering all the times you saw a bunch of people mentioning the Great Reset? Yeah, it's just a conspiracy theory, of course. But I wanted to give you guys some background into what the Great Reset is. Anyway, so that's the Great Reset. That's why the World Economic Forum is so significant to them and why they think they're being tracked. And there's just this whole big conspiracy built up around the World Economic Forum. That's why they're losing their minds over it.
Who died and left y'all in charge? Who said you all was in charge? Just because you done made a little money, you think you can tell the little people what to do. Come on. Well, just because you're a grasshopper, is more ants than grasshoppers. That's right. Understand that.
I don't understand that. I'm sorry. I'm trying. Honestly, they're more ant than grasshopper. Is this a reference to that Disney movie A Bug's Life? I thought they didn't like Disney. I'm just so confused by all of this.
right. Understand that. It's more of us than them.
And what is keeping up with our carbon footprint? How is that going to help we, the American people?
Well, why are they worried about tracking us?
Okay, they are not worried about tracking you. They're trying to give you the ability to track yourself. If you know what your carbon footprint is, you can take steps to mitigate that, to counteract that. I mean, there are calculators online all over the place that'll help you figure this out. Honestly, I'm not even convinced that that's even a real clip, to tell you the truth at this point. What would a carbon tracker do for anybody? Like, you could just use a calculator and figure it out yourself. You don't need a tracker. I don't know. I guess, like, trackers could be useful if you own a farm, and it could help you figure out, like, how much methane your animals are releasing into the atmosphere or something like that. But you can take steps to mitigate the damage if you know exactly how much damage you personally are doing. That's the point. Again, I'm not even convinced this is real at this point.
Worried about tracking us.
Oh.
What do you all have planned?
Oh, that's the undercover hoopla.
That's the undercover hoopla.
Gotcha.
Listen, I don't believe that the United States of America want to go into globalism, socialism, or communism.
That's right.
Now, if that's what y'all want to do, go build yourself an island and do it over there.
That's right.
But not here.
Not in America.
Okay, nobody in charge, nobody in any kind of position of political power in the U.S. has anything to do with communism. I mean, there are some social democrats in the United States. That's not socialism by any stretch of the imagination. This is just absolutely unhinged stuff, dude. And here's the point. Why did Mark Burns go on their show of all places to tell their audience that he didn't want to charge the LGBT community with treason? Why did he tell their audience? If anything, he just lowered his ratings by telling them that. If he wanted to improve his ratings among the general population, he should have gone on MSNBC or Newsweek or someplace like that covered this originally to spread that message. And he should have doubled down on the other message, the one about charging them with treason, on Diamond and Silk's podcast or whatever. It seems to me that this dude is completely incompetent when it comes to social media or media training in general. But I guess that worked out for the best for us, right? I mean, at least he lost his primary. At least as a result, at least indirect result, he's not going to be in government. Not right now, anyways.